Hey there, fellow horse lovers. Welcome back to the Daily Ride podcast. My name is Morgan. I am your host. And today I wanted to take a deep dive into, yet again, positive reinforcement. The powerful thing about positive reinforcement is that it is effective across all species, including humans. But it is not just giving a cookie when you get the behavior you want. It is not just watching and capturing a good decision and rewarding a good decision or a behavior that you'd like to see. It is so much more than just the click reward. And so today I wanted to talk more deeply about the two other aspects of positive reinforcement that have recently been really highlighted for me in training a puppy. The first one being controlling the environment to help set your animal, yourself, whoever is being trained or whoever is learning up for the greatest success, or at least help prevent undesired behaviors or learning patterns that you want to avoid. And it's about creating positive associations. So, not just rewarding for a behavior that you're looking for, but rather associating good things with certain places, with certain attitudes, with certain attention. And so hopefully you'll end up with an animal that loves going to the vet because you've created such a positive association with that place. Not necessarily a specific behavior that you have trained, but you've created a positive association with it. With being mindful of the positive associations that our animals have made within their minds, we actually have a lot of power in how they see the world and how they're thinking about the world, and in turn, supporting their mental health. Before we get into this episode, I wanted to remind you quickly that the Daily Ride podcast directly supports True Heart Healing. True Heart Healing is my nonprofit foundation that I am training my horse, True Heart, to support me in. Our mission together is to leverage the healing power of equine partnership and the joy of equine companionship to support and empower children with disabilities and/or life-altering illnesses, service members, veterans, and their families to build stabilizing relationships, facilitate learning and personal growth, find hope, and discover purpose. If this is something that you would like to support, head on over to www.the-daily-ride.com to check us out and make a donation. True Heart and I greatly appreciate your support. So let's start with a quick recap of what positive reinforcement is. The term reinforcement refers to an interaction or a training response, a consequence to an action that helps increase the frequency of that action occurring again. The term reinforcement is the opposite of the term punishment. And punishment, in the psychological sense that we're defining the word punishment, doesn't mean, oh, you're in trouble, but punishment is the consequence that deters a certain action or behavior from occurring again. So you're trying to reduce the frequency of that behavior. Reinforcement increases the frequency of the behavior, punishment decreases the frequency of the behavior. And within reinforcement, you have positive and negative reinforcement. And within punishment, you have positive and negative punishment. Positive and negative doesn't necessarily mean good or bad or enjoyable, not enjoyable. Positive means the addition of something that will increase the behavior. So positive reinforcement would be you do a trick, you get a cookie. The cookie increases the likelihood that that trick will continue. You are adding a cookie to the equation. Negative reinforcement is also how we train horses, where the application of pressure tells your horse to move. As soon as your horse moves, you take your leg off. I like to use the example of a dinging seatbelt. You get in the car is trying, or the manufacturers of the car rather, are trying to get you to plug in your seatbelt. They're trying to get you to increase the behavior of plugging in your seatbelt. The only way you can get your car to stop dinging, stop the annoying thing, remove that annoying thing, negative, is to plug in your seatbelt. You plug in your seatbelt, the dinging stops. That annoying thing is taken away. So that's negative reinforcement. You're increasing the likelihood that you're plugging in your seatbelt by removing a stimulus, by removing the annoying dinging. You're increasing the likelihood that your horse will move off your leg pressure. And once they do, you remove the pressure. So that's negative reinforcement. Reinforcement only means increasing the likelihood that that behavior continues. Positive punishment is spanking a kid for stealing a cookie out of the jar. You are applying something undesirable to reduce the likelihood that stealing cookies will continue. You're reducing the likelihood that that behavior will repeat. Negative punishment is kid steals a cookie out of the cookie jar, you take their Nintendo away, you take away their favorite toy. That is, you're removing something desirable, again, to reduce the likelihood that they continue that behavior of stealing cookies. So punishment is something that I think most of us as animal owners, animal lovers, we try and avoid doing with our animals. But I think understanding the difference between positive and negative reinforcement can also be really powerful. We've talked at length on this podcast about positive reinforcement within the context of click reward. Click being the marker, that snapshot moment of that behavior that you're asking for, that behavior you want. And then the reward being cookies, treats, attention, whatever is high value for your horse. There are other aspects of setting up a relationship and interaction with your horse that are also technically positive reinforcement. You are adding things desirable to the environment to increase the likelihood that desirable behaviors continue. And the first aspect of that is the idea that you can control the environment to help facilitate more behaviors that you would like. Now, as horse owners, our horses live outside and none of us can control the weather. However, imagine trying to take the SATs in the middle of a rock concert or while your favorite TV show is playing. It's going to be really hard to focus when there are things going on that are really distracting and that you'd really like to pay attention to. And so while you can't control the weather and everything, you can be mindful of what you're asking your horse to do given the weather and given the circumstances. If you have a horse that is really affected by wind, or they can feel that pressure change right before a storm rolls in, maybe that's not the day to practice something brand new that is likely to frustrate your horse. Maybe that's a better opportunity to use that distracting environment to practice skills your horse already knows to help them build their confidence. So they can say, I can answer this question correctly, even though the wind is blowing. I know the answer to that. And they can still feel positive about engaging with you, even though it's a windy day outside, it's working against them. Is a windy day the best time to try trailer loading your horse for the first time? Probably not. It might make more sense to try and not necessarily control the environment because you can't control the weather, but you can use your environment to help set your horse up for success. There's a saying many of us have probably heard that goes, make the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. And that directly speaks to the aspect of positive reinforcement being mindful of your environment and setting your horse up for success. If you're introducing a really difficult behavior or something entirely new, it's probably best to choose a day where the weather is nice, where your horse isn't hungry, where things are quiet, there's not a whole lot else going on, the tractor is safely parked on the other end of the property, there have been no surprise upsets to the herd, and so it is just easier for that horse to focus because they ate their Wheaties that morning, there's nothing distracting going on. You're asking them hard questions in an environment that gives them the best chance at being able to think about what the right answer is. Another thing to keep in mind is not just the external environment, but how your horse is feeling. I mentioned just a moment ago asking them things when they're not hungry. I don't know about you, but I really have a hard time focusing at work right before lunchtime because my stomach is grumbling and I'd rather think about what I'm going to grab to eat. Same thing goes for your horse. Not just hunger, but are they too hot? Are they too cold? Are they thirsty? Is there a cute horse nearby that they want to go flirt with? I say all these things with a smile on my face because I own a mare. And so while it shouldn't necessarily stop the whole show from progressing, understanding what's going on with your horse physically and mentally, both in the external environment and their internal environment, really can go a long way. Again, you want to make it easy for your horse to feel successful because you want them to feel eager and able to work with you. Behaviors are learned when they're allowed to be repeated. And so optimally, you can manipulate your external environment to prevent undesirable behaviors from repeating themselves or self-reinforcing and make the desirable behaviors easily repeatable. A great example of this was with my horse trainer, Tara, using her environment to set True up for success in her first 90 days of training as a 2-year-old. Tara has a round pen with really deep sand that she starts all of her colts in. And She does this for a couple of reasons. One, running in deep sand is a great workout. It engages all your muscles. It burns a ton of calories faster than running on a flat surface. And it makes bucking really hard. And a lot of horses, when they first get a saddle on or they first get the weight of a rider or are first being told what to do by a human, might cop some attitude and might try and throw a buck in. And that's really tough to do in deep sand. And so, by using the deep sand in that round pen, Tara is using her environment to create the behavior that she wants and deter the behavior that she doesn't want repeated. A horse might still try and buck a couple times in that deep sand in the round pen, but in that environment, they'll learn really quickly that bucking is just not worth the effort. It is really hard to pull off. It's a lot easier to just do what you're told. And so that environment is something that Tara has manipulated to set her horses up to success, to increase the likelihood that the desirable is repeated and the undesirable behavior is tough. If you haven't caught the episode with Brian from House of Dog, I'm so grateful that he got to come on and share his story of his dog who learned how to get on the counter and open the microwave. And he couldn't prevent this behavior from happening when he was out of the house and the dog was home alone. So he just removed the microwave. There's no microwave to break into. Problem solved. I'm not saying we should all go to such drastic measures, but say there's a tarp in the arena that just always throws your horse off. Week over week, you keep trying to desensitize and get used to seeing this tarp, and every week it's a problem. Before you ask something especially challenging or brand new of your horse, maybe just remove the tarp from the equation. Keep working on that another day, but don't stack it on top of a different skill that you're asking for. Again, it's not about lowering the bar of expectation for your horse. It's about making sure your horse has adequate support to meet each specific bar you expect them to rise to. You're not trying to bubble wrap your horse forever. Instead, you're stacking the deck in their favor. So there's a more direct path for them to be able to get the answer right. Another way you can control your environment is to kind of make your job easier with marking and rewarding and capturing behaviors that you want to see. If you're trying to teach your horse to line up at the mounting block, step one would be mark and reward every time your horse looks at the mounting block and how they move closer to the mounting block, and keep marking and rewarding each of those attempts. That's kind of how you shape the behavior into ultimately lining up next to the mounting block so you can climb on. But you start when that horse just looks at it. So how can you set up your environment to make it just natural and easy for that horse to look at the mounting block? If that mounting block is the only thing in the arena, the horse is naturally going to be drawn to it to look at it because there's nothing else to gawk at. If there's a bunch of other things, other interesting things, let alone things the horse has not seen before, next to the mounting block or in the other direction, it might be difficult for that horse to even start giving you the behavior that you're trying to shape from. So making sure that your expectations and your environment is working with you to help shape behaviors from the beginning rather than work against you. By controlling the environment that you're working with your horse in, it's easier to control the context in which their learning happens. The recent struggle with our puppy Juniper has been when it rains in the afternoon and the windshield wipers turn on. I typically have her in her doggy car seat in the passenger seat of my truck, and when it starts to rain and I turn the windshield wipers on, she just lunges at the windshield to try and bite the wipers, even though she's got a doggy seatbelt, which holds her back, which I think almost frustrates her more because she can't get to them from the other side of the glass. This is a really dangerous habit. If it starts raining, road conditions aren't optimal as it is, let alone when you have a psychotic, growling house gremlin in your passenger seat, creating all kinds of noise, all kinds of erratic actions, breaking your eardrums. It's too much. How can I control that environment to help capture the behavior that I want out of her, which is just silently ignoring the windshield wipers? Well, I can park the car in the driveway. I can put her in the back seat. From the back seat, she can see the windshield wipers, but there's more space there. And I can control that distance a little bit easier when I'm not driving. I can get in the back seat with her, and I can capture and reward every time those windshield wipers run and she doesn't look at them and she doesn't lunge at them from the back seat. Over time, I anticipate being able to get closer and hopefully getting her back to the front seat. But again, being able to control the environment and practice those windshield wipers from the back seat, or if we have to, even taking her outside of the car and turning the windshield wipers on. being able to work with the environment and the space she has between those really threatening windshield wipers and where she's sitting in the car is how it makes it easier for me to set her up for success, where she can give me the behavior that I want, the right answer of ignoring them versus lunging at them, which in her defense is really hard to do when you're a herding dog and there's something running across the windshield right in front of your face. You could also work on something like this with horses. If you have a horse that is really unsure about streams, start with a puddle. Start by making a puddle in a driveway or on a road with a hose. You can control how big or small that puddle is, and you can work with that horse in a smaller context before you work your way up to crossing that stream. Let's take a quick break from this week's episode to talk about one of the Daily Ride podcast's sponsors. So, you all know that I spend a lot of time around horses, which means when I get home, I want to get comfy and I need to get cozy, and I really need good rest. So, I'm super excited to tell you that Cozy Earth has decided to partner with the Daily Ride, and I have an exclusive discount code to share. Their products are made from bamboo, so not only are they incredibly soft, like buttery soft, they're also temperature regulating, so I don't wake up sweaty anymore, and I just enjoy cool, dry, comfortable sleep. Plus, their sheets are lightweight and durable. And listen, I'm not the only one who loves these sheets. Oprah has had Cozy Earth on her favorite things list for 7 years running, and Kris Jenner swears by them too. They've even been called the world's softest sheets on the talk, and honestly, I would have to agree. They also have the coziest bamboo pajama sets. I think I have like 5 of them, and they're the perfect mix of elegant looking and super comfy, stretchy, and breathable. Basically, the kind of pajamas that you don't mind being seen in and don't want to take off. Cozy Earth has thousands of 5-star reviews, free shipping on orders over $50, and even a 100-night sleep trial so you can see for yourself risk-free. Plus, they back all of this up with a 10-year warranty. So here's the exciting deal. I got the very best discount that they offer, which is 41% off the entire website when you use my code THEDAILYRIDE, no spaces, at CozyEarth.com. This takes 41% off of your entire order, and 15% of your purchase goes directly to True Heart Healing. So this is a win-win. You get their best discount, you're donating to True Heart Healing, and you get to enjoy the best sheets and pajamas ever. So head on over to www.CozyEarth.com and remember to use my code THEDAILYRIDE, that's THEDAILYRIDE, at checkout for 41% off the entire website. Now, let's get back into it. The other piece of positive reinforcement that I think goes hand in hand with being able to control the environment is the idea that you're not just marking and rewarding specific behaviors, but it's really about creating positive associations with things. Horses, humans, everything with a conscious brain is consistently making connections between actions and consequences and correlations between circumstances. And sometimes we make those connections for our horse intentionally. Say, you stand quietly at the mounting block and let me get on, you get lots of pets and scratches and cookies. And sometimes they can happen accidentally. We had a cattle dog that would bark every time the phone rang, and in order to keep her from barking, my mom would give her a cookie. So my dog started associating the phone ringing with getting treats. Same thing with horses. If every time you show up at the barn and you get the halter and you go and get your horse, and the only thing you do with your horse is work, 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 your horse might see you coming and start walking the other way if they don't feel like doing anything that day. But if they learn that working with you is pretty fun, like, yeah, you have to work, but we get to play games, we get to do new things, there's usually lots of scratches and cookies and praise, it might actually be kind of fun to meet you at the gate because they're looking forward to seeing you. You've created a positive association. When they see you coming with that halter, they don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, they'll probably have to do some work, but you've made it fun for them. You've created a positive association. I always think about this when I see people go and get their horse and their horse sees them and runs away. That's indicative of something's going on in your relationship there where your horse does not want to be with you, whether it's you're in a bad mood and your horse just doesn't want to be in the middle of your funkiness that day, or your horse is like, yeah, you know what? Yesterday was really not fun for me. I don't want to do that again today. No, thank you. But actually, it's beyond reversing negative expectations. One of the most powerful uses of creating positive associations is taking something that might have a neutral association and pairing it with something positive until the horse's brain kind of reframes it as something they look forward to. A big one I've seen that is not just neutral but can be kind of negative is the idea of fly spray. When I first got True, she really didn't like the idea of a spray bottle. And I had some really well-meaning advice to put water in a spray bottle and spray her with water until she got used to that. And sure enough, that worked. But switching back to fly spray, horses are so sensitive to smell, and she had a really hard time with the chemicals. And while she didn't jump because she had been used to the water spraying on her from the spray bottle, she still didn't really like it. And I think it was because of the smell of the fly spray. I needed to create a positive association for her to tolerate the smelly fly spray. And so she learned pretty quickly that when I get the fly spray out, in my other hand, I have a handful of cookies. And so it's not about capturing her standing still for the fly spray, but that fly spray bottle means there are cookies that are about to happen. And so she naturally kind of offered to stand still because this thing that she wasn't a big fan of was paired with something that she really enjoyed in my other hand. And so fly spray means cookies, fly spray means scratches. Eventually, she didn't care so much about the fly spray being smelly. That said, there are wonderful fly spray alternatives, and I would encourage you to go find a previous podcast episode on a brand called Electric Pony. True is a big fan of that fly spray, and she will happily accept it and even let me rub it on her face. So I'm not advocating for you to ignore your horse telling you, oh, I don't like that. I think that's valuable information. But sometimes it's just a matter of making sure that even if they're not necessarily telling you they love something, can you help them create a more positive association with it so you can do what you need to do? In this way, by creating positive associations, you're not punishing your horse for telling you their opinion. And that's what we really want to avoid with horse training. If your horse has an allergic reaction to fly spray and that's why they're jumping away, even if you've created a positive association, hopefully through that positive association, through that established communication that you've had with your horse, you still need to pay attention when they're telling you no. However, things like, oh, I'm not sure about that, or oh, I don't know that I like that, can become a good thing. This really comes to mind with vet visits. True can sometimes be a little needle shy, but she's also learned recently that every time a vet shows up and gives her neck scratches, even if she gets a needle poke, she's definitely going to get cookies. And so she's quit jumping around about needles because vets are now associated with cookies and attention for her. She also loves showing off her tricks, and we have very patient vets and a care team that love seeing her litany of tricks that she's got to show off. And she soaks up every bit of that attention. So we've successfully created a positive association with veterinary visits. Let's take a quick pause from today's episode to talk about the obvious for us horse owners in the winter months. Working with horses means putting your hands through a lot between holding the reins, fixing fences, mucking stalls, and just cold mornings at the barn. I've gone through a lot more gloves than I can count, and I'm really picky. It's hard to find a pair that I really love and can keep up. But recently, I think I found one, and they're called Bare Knuckles. Now, these aren't your average work gloves. They're made with a patented double wedge pre-curved design that fits the natural curve of your fingers, so you get less hand fatigue and more grip strength. And this means you can go muck stalls, swing a hammer, or ride all day without that stiff cramping feeling that most gloves will give you. The premium leather is tough enough for the hardest jobs, but soft enough that you can still handle delicate tack or your tools. Plus, they're warm too. Their insulated pair is perfect for cold weather chores or trail rides. And honestly, once you put them on, you too will understand why they're called the best leather gloves ever made. Here's the best part. Bare Knuckles is partnering with the Daily Ride podcast to give you 15% off your purchase when you use the code THEDAILYRIDE at checkout. Even better, 15% of your purchase using the Daily Ride at checkout will go directly to support True Heart Healing, my nonprofit. So if you've been meaning to upgrade your gloves, or if you need a great gift for someone else who works hard with their hands, go to buybareknuckles.com. That's BUYBEARKNUCKLES.com. Use the code THEDAILYRIDE, no spaces. That's 15% off for you and 15% off donated to True Heart Healing. It's rare to find gear that works as hard as you do and supports a good cause. So next time you're saddling up or heading to work and think you need a good pair of gloves, think about bare knuckles and give your hands a little comfort for all that they do for you. So I wanted to end this episode by talking about the deeper impact of these aspects of positive reinforcement that go beyond just click and reward. Positive reinforcement is especially powerful because it changes your relationship dynamic and it helps foster two-way communication. It shifts your horse, your dog, your animal from being a passive participant in trying to do what you're telling it to do or react to what you're imposing upon it to instead being a more active participant and even a conversation partner who offers ideas or answers to questions you ask. It also allows them to be curious about their environment without fear of being punished. And that idea that it is safe to express themselves also allows you to understand their personality a little bit more. Everyone learns differently, and horses and dogs and cats are all individuals in their own right as well, and so it stands to reason that they all have their own unique learning styles as well. Having been a teacher previously myself, I can state with absolute certainty that we learn best when our teacher understands how our minds work and how we need to be presented with new information. The same goes for working with your animal. By using positive reinforcement, creating a safe, intentional environment, and creating positive associations with working with you, your animal is going to feel safe enough to show you who they really are and communicate what they need from you. And in turn, you have a better understanding of how their brain works and how you need to present things so they can learn more effectively. Nobody likes working, but when things feel like a game to your horse, they start having fun. They start showing their personality. You have more fun too. Everyone is more relaxed. You learn things more quickly. This is especially important with equine therapy. I am training True to respond with a gentle touch and to stay calm because I need my clients to be able to trust her and the process. That means True needs to have a positive association with working with people in general, and she needs to trust that this is going to be a good thing. Sometimes the clients we work with come with frenetic energy, with a lot of pain, with a lot of trauma. And that's a big ask for True to take on and care about herself. By creating a positive association with her, she can then pass that positive association on to my clients because she's able to remain calm, curious, open, and trusting. True then becomes the living demonstration of kindness, patience, and consistency. And in offering that to my clients can then begin to reshape their own mindset about how they see the world. Ultimately, we all deserve to feel heard and valued and safe. And so by being able to foster that relationship with True, then she can foster that relationship with others as well. You want your dog and your horse to see you at the gate, to see the people they work with and think, great, there's a person that I can't wait to go interact with. I wonder what we're going to learn today. You don't want your horse to see you coming with your halter and go, oh crap, how am I going to avoid her? But all of that has to do with how mindful we are about setting them up for success. There's an even deeper purpose under all of this as well. And as you go out to interact with your horse or your dog or your spouse or your kid today, I want you to be mindful of the environment that your interaction partner is in. I want you to be mindful of what they are feeling in the moment. And I want you to be mindful of how you're asking. Are you asking them questions? Are you expecting behaviors in a way that it's easy for them to meet that expectation? Is there an opportunity for you to create a positive association with something that might be hard? Say you have to take your dog to the vet. Do vet visits mean a ton of treats, scratches, pup cups on the way home? Or are they just kind of stressful and miserable all the way around? Is there an opportunity to make completing your homework fun, connecting? Is there a reward? How can you set up your loved ones, your animals for success by being mindful of your environment? And how can you look for opportunities to create positive associations with things that otherwise might be kind of difficult or undesirable to deal with? By practicing that mindset internally within yourself, by hunting the good in how you interact with animals and how you interact with other people in your life, you are also rewiring your own brain. So this is not just good for your horse, it's good for you to practice thinking in terms of positive reinforcement. Because then instead of focusing on my horse didn't quite, clear that cone, or they didn't pick their feet up, or that posture wasn't quite right, we're all perfectionists. We can all be hypercritical, especially of ourselves. Instead, we shift our focus onto looking for the positive. That is hugely powerful when dealing with what I consider the common colds of the human existence and mental health, depression, anxiety, general worry and disquiet and discontent with our lives. If we are intentional about setting things up for success, for the least amount of friction, by creating positive associations and hunting and rewarding the good stuff, we are training our own brains to be full of gratitude, full of positivity, and we're building our own mental resilience. So to conclude, positive reinforcement is more than just click reward. It's about the science of rewiring your brain. It's about timing. It's about consistency. It's about being mindful and using your environment to your advantage. And it's about creating positive associations with things. Positive associations reframe how we see the world around us, and controlling our environment or using it to our advantage makes being successful a lot easier and being afraid a lot less likely. All these things put together creates not just well-trained horses, but joy in our horses' lives and in our own. As you head out into the world after this episode, I invite you to try to find one small thing that you can create a positive association with, whether that be with your dog or your horse or even yourself. Pair something that might be neutral or maybe even a little negative with something positive. Keep trying it for a few days and notice how your perspective shifts over time. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Daily Ride podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, give us a positive rating, and leave a comment about future content that you would be interested in listening to. Also, don't forget to check out True Heart Healing at www.the-daily-ride to check us out and make a donation. I would love to continue bringing the power of positive reinforcement and positive reinforcement into other people's lives and other horses' lives. Until the next time, enjoy the ride.